Hey everybody, this is Richie Allen, and you are watching the Make Peace with War podcast. We fight battles every day: sickness, disease, discouragement, depression, anxiety, financial issues, devastating events, deep losses. The state of our external and internal worlds and the state of the church can leave us with physical, mental, and spiritual wounds from the battle. The goal of Make Peace with War is to walk through these battles together and draw strength and encouragement from each other, to master a mindset of peace in the middle of warfare, internal peace in external chaos. Listen, I don't have all the answers, but I know this: we find the answers when we search for them. So let's discover together how to fight our battles, not just with peace, but from peace, from a peaceful place that is deeply anchored and isn't shaken in storms. Make Peace with War is a journey into living by, through, and in the Spirit, with deep discussion and practical insights into becoming peaceful warriors. Welcome to Make Peace with War. Hey guys, thank you so much for joining us on another episode of the Churches series here on the Make Peace with War podcast. I am excited about this one. This is a little different than what a different subject matter than what we've actually talked about for a while. This one, Jennifer Foster, Natalie Biggs, and I talk about where we are on our faith journey and the struggles that we are individually having in our faith, in different areas of our faith. And I think this is an important conversation to have. It's an important conversation to have because it's easy for people to think that the more spiritually mature you are, the less struggles you have with your faith. And I'm going to disagree. I think spiritual maturity is not an absence of faith struggles. It is an acknowledgement of those faith struggles and a decision to continue to seek after and pursue God in the midst of those struggles. So we're all on our own individual journeys, and we're all in different places, and that is okay, because it is a journey that is very personal to you and to God. And in our lives, it's very personal to us. We're all going through different things. I've just come out of a very traumatic year and a half, watching my wife go through her battle with cancer and losing her 6 months ago. Jennifer has gone through an extraordinary amount but from a different perspective, with divorce and the loss of the church that they were a part of for so many years, and that they started. And Natalie has gone through loss after loss as well. With she just lost her mom this past year, right not long after I lost my wife, and she lost her dad a few years ago, and so many other things, and a massive change in their life, as far as where their income comes from and their job, and walking away from the church ministry position that they had. So we all have very different things that we've had to deal with, and so we're all seeing things from a little bit of a different perspective. So I think it's a really good conversation for us to have, so you get to see what we're thinking through, and maybe you can find yourself in those conversations as well, and just understand that it's okay to have questions. It's okay to deal with doubt, or to deal with a crisis of faith, and it's okay for those things to happen. You're not unhealthy. You're not going the wrong direction just when you have these kinds of issues that you have to go through. We all have them. So I think you're going to enjoy the conversation, and we're going to break this up into two parts. So because we had a long conversation. So enjoy it, and we'll talk to you soon. I don't know, right? I literally sat laid in the bed. Heaven died 6 months ago, 2 days ago. It's been 6 months and 2 days. It doesn't. It's just like it's going like this, and it also feels like forever. It's just it's weird. So I went to the graveside. The kids still aren't really ready to do that, and so I haven't made them go. But I went to the graveside, and it hit me weird this time. Like, it just hit me weird because I just felt. I cried from the minute that I got there to the minute that I left. Like, I couldn't stop crying. It was normally I can hold it until I get to the thing and start talking a little bit, and then but I was a mess. But I talked to her for a little bit. I went back home. I laid in the bed for the rest of the day. It just kind of whatever. Yeah. It was a non-day for me, and
not doing life today.
But I just asked. I said, God. I talked to God for a while, and I just said, God, I don't know exactly what I'm supposed to do right now, right? I don't know where I'm at. I don't, I know that I have plans, right? I have things that I want to see happen. Like, I've got this business, this Airbnb arbitrage business that we're starting, and we're starting a church of house churches. That's these are all plans, right? We don't know exactly how it's all going to work, but we're doing that. But they're just plans, and I recognize that plans are not promises. They are just plans, and they're not necessarily ours. I mean, there are plans. They're not necessarily God's. Mm-hmm. And so I just sat and talked to him for a while and just said, you know what, this kind of all sucks.
Yeah.
Like, all of this sucks. The whole idea.
We just not know where we're going. Yeah.
We don't know.
No.
And I don't. And but God, I do know this, that I love you, that I want to do something for you, for the kingdom of God somehow. I don't know what that looks like. Yeah. I don't know, and I also just want to make sure that in the process that I'm doing it for the right reasons. Yeah. Right? Yeah. And I didn't come up with any answers. No. It wasn't an answer. It was not a question and answer session. It was just a one-sided discussion at that point. But it's just such a weird space to be in.
It's a very weird space. And I think for me, like, being in that same spot, just trying to figure it all out when nothing looks normal, like everything's changed, and you're like, okay, what's next? What do I go to? As the days go by, it becomes even more real. It becomes even more real. And I realize that it may not all go as planned. It may, like you just said, I want to do something for the kingdom of God. That's all I've pretty much known. It's like working in a ministry. And now here I find myself, I'm not in a ministry. Mm-hmm. And so I'm trying to make plans for my life. But I realize that, you know what, it may not look that way. Well, good things, like what I consider to be good things. Richie, there's people out there who are hurting, and they're good people, and they love Jesus, and they're doing the right thing every day, and it's still hard. Like, life is still hard, and they're not getting, like, their dreams, the things that they've maybe put on paper, the things that they thought that they were, like, moving towards, they're still trying to get there. Yeah. And so it's just like this realization that it may not all turn out the way that I think it's going to turn out. And is that okay? Like, will I be content with that too? That's my struggle right now. Like,
it is a struggle.
It's a huge struggle.
It's a struggle. I mean, when you've had trauma of any kind, when you have trauma, and things don't go like you planned, And side note to anybody that's watching or listening, this is not a poor mouth, poor me session or a poor us session. It's not that. This is real life, right? I mean, we've got a sign above the dresser in our room that says, "And together they built the life they loved." And I look at that sign. It's still there. I look at that sign and I go, well, that kind of crashed and burned. right? It's like this is not exactly what we had planned.
No.
None of this was what we had planned.
Yeah.
None of it. And my boy was last night, again, not being overly dramatic, but my boy last night had locked himself in the bathroom, and I heard Heaven's song playing. It will come to pass. And I listened, and he was crying.
My gosh.
And I opened the door, and he like just went straight to his bedroom. Then he turned around, and he came back, and he did like this and just grabbed me and hugged me. And I said, "You okay, buddy?" He goes, "Yeah."
My gosh.
And I said, "Were you crying?" He goes, "Yeah." And he starts crying, and it was just like I went and laid with him in the bed. And so it's like none of those things were planned.
No.
Yeah.
None of them were planned. Not for us, you know. And honestly, this is I think maybe part of this discussion today is I don't necessarily believe that they were in God's perfect plan either.
Yeah, no, I don't either.
And I think that's a test. That's a faith question, right?
Yeah.
Because we've been taught for so much of our lives that, well, if it didn't happen because you didn't have faith, or something was not right in your family, or it was a generational curse, or you don't start right.
Get me started.
Don't get started on the generational curse thing. But it must have been God's plan if it happened. It must have been in God's
No,
plan.
I don't believe that.
No, I do not believe that at all. I think we play a much bigger part, and people play a much bigger part in how things go
I would
than
agree
we
with that.
think
100%.
we do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
But anyway, I'm rambling.
No, you're not. It's good, and this is life. I had the same thought. I was literally listening to country music, and there was this song, and it's just talking about falling in love with a girl and how they went on to get married, and they lived their life, watched their children grow up, and then they're watching their children's children. Sorry, got choked up.
Yep.
And I had a moment to where I was like, dang, that got messed up for me.
Yeah,
that was my plan.
That screwed it up.
That was my plan.
Yep.
And you know what? No, that wasn't God's plan for it to get messed up.
No.
Somebody messed that up. Something messed that up.
Yes.
And so, yes, I agree. Like, we play a much bigger role in that. And that messes with me a little bit.
It does. It does. You said country music. For some reason or
Love
other,
it. I have to have it.
for some reason or other, my son, I don't know what's
I know
going
where this
on.
is going.
I don't know what's going on. Like, I don't know where this is
I
coming from.
love
I don't
it.
listen to country music. All right. But
Maybe God's trying to tell you
maybe
something.
so.
Yeah.
We're in Orlando and we're driving. We got upgraded for free because of some issues at Thrifty Car Rental. We got upgraded to this Jeep Gladiator. So we took the top off and we're driving down the interstate going to look at some swamps or whatever. And Rafe goes, "Dad, can we listen to George Strait?" I'm like, "What?
How does he
Whoa.
even know?
How do you know George Strait?" He goes, "Well, all my friends at school listen to, can we listen to I Cross My Heart?" And I'm like,
The worst.
Of
I'm
all
sorry,
of the songs.
I love George Strait, but that's the worst.
of all the songs,
stand
why
it.
Cross
Yeah.
My Heart?
I mean, have y'all never seen Pure Country? Wasn't that the name of the movie?
But I'm over here, so I'm the country family. Like, my family's country, right? And Jillian at the dinner table last night, she was given this task for school where they had to pick someone, whether it was like someone who did something, famous in history, a celebrity, just somebody who was born in Texas. So the school gives them this long list of people, and she's like naming all these incredible people. And George Strait's on the list. I'm like, "Oh, pick George Strait." And she's like, "Who's George Strait?" I'm like, "How are you part of this family?" And Rafe, who doesn't even listen to country, knows who George Strait is. No, my child picks Hillary Duff.
Well, I'm just cracking up. Look, was Rafe in the third grade? Like, George Strait is really like a bop for third graders?
I'm not getting, especially Across My Heart. Like, I mean, I get oceanfront property, maybe.
He's a
but
sensitive
come on.
little man.
He is, and
I
he's just
love
like
it.
listening to it and singing it to the top of his
Singing
lungs
it.
with the
He
wind
would.
blowing and everything. And I'm going,
I'm
this is
miserable right
such
now.
this is such a weird experience that I'm having right here, listening to George Strait with my kid. And
Tell him to come to Aunt Jen's house.
I love the video of him.
So
oh, you saw that? That's
Yeah.
right. You saw it. Hold on.
That's so cute. I
know.
love it. Oh
I know,
my gosh.
but you know what? The cool thing about that moment for me was I looked in the rearview mirror and they're all singing George Strait song, and and the wind's blowing, and they're having the greatest time.
Yeah.
And heaven's not there.
Yeah.
And first of all, I felt guilty.
Yeah.
I felt a little guilty for having a moment of fun, and then realizing that she's not there, and that's a counseling thing that I'm working through. So, but I've learned it's okay. That's what she would want, right? That's
right.
what she would want. But I did look at it, and I went and I realized, you know what? I felt like the Lord spoke to me. It may not have been the Lord. It may have been me, but I felt like the Lord spoke to me and said, "They're going to be okay."
Yeah.
And that's faith, right?
Yeah.
So when you look at your life and you look at the situation and everything that you had planned and all the stuff that just crashes down and it gets completely destroyed and it's not fixable, you can't fix it. It's done. The way you were going is no longer an option. All things work together for good
Yeah.
to them who love God, to them who are called according to his purpose. Doesn't mean it's all good. It simply means that it's going to be okay.
It's going to be all right.
It's going to be okay. And we talked about this a couple weeks ago. We had all of us kind of what day was that? We went over. Was it Easter?
Easter.
It was
Yeah.
Easter. Yeah. We
yeah.
we were hanging over
That
at
day.
Natalie and Jason.
Resurrection Day.
Yeah, that day. And I want to talk about where we went for church for Easter too. That's a good one.
Oh gosh.
But anyway, we're sitting there talking, but this
That's not even
conversation.
fair. Let's circle back around. This is not fair. Okay, now I see where we're going.
I see. But we were talking about the idea that God has an interesting. I think that God is a lot more hands-off than we think he is.
Yeah, I agree.
And that sounds like a really cop-out thing.
No, I wouldn't have thought that.
Yeah.
Like even a year ago.
Yeah.
But most definitely, I agree with that statement.
Yeah, I really do. I think that God sets the plan in motion from the foundation of the earth. He set all of the laws and all this stuff. That's why there's certainly universal laws that regardless of whether you are a believer or not, if you tap into those laws, you receive the benefits of those laws. For example, generosity, right? You find that people will give and they receive. They can be an atheist, agnostic, they can be whatever, but they are generous, and as a result, they receive back. There's tons of other ones, but they're universal laws. I think God sets these universal laws into motion. Some of the ones that say, if you do this, then you also get this punishment, right?
And they may call it like the law of attraction.
Right.
What a lot of people who are not, in church, or maybe you're in church and you call, I think there's something to that, but they're tapping in to, like you said, they're tapping into that. They may call it something else, but they're tapping into
But it's the same spiritual
law.
principle.
Exactly.
It's in the Bible.
Exactly.
It's in the law of attraction is in the Bible.
Yes.
What you speak with
They
your
just
mouth.
don't call it the secret in
Right.
the Bible. But
No,
yes.
they call it. What did they call it? Manifesting, right?
Yes,
They call it
that's the new
manifesting.
word, yes.
What we would call it is speaking things that are not as though they were.
Yes.
That's what the scripture says, right? And so it's the same thing.
It's
It's
the
a
same
universal
thing.
principle that God placed into motion, and even all other religions, a lot of other religions ascribe to those kinds of things
Yeah.
because they've seen that when you do this, you get
Yeah.
this, right? So God sets all those things into motion, and then I think he goes, okay.
Yeah.
Now it's up
Here
to
go.
you.
It's up to you.
And once in a while, I'll step in. I'm going to step in once in a while, and it's always going to be for a bigger picture, purpose. It's not just going to be because you need something.
Right.
It's going to be because you need something, and when I do it for you, it's going to affect a bigger purpose.
Which is why he doesn't always step in.
Which is why he doesn't always
someone's not always healed when we pray.
Exactly.
Sometimes he steps in, like you said, for a bigger purpose, to show his glory, to show
Yep.
he's there, how
Yep.
big our God is. And then there's other times when he chooses not to, because we're just living. This is just
We're
doing
living,
life.
and sometimes we make decisions that affect
Yeah.
our future.
Yes.
And we have to pay the consequences of those things. Sometimes we eat bad food, we eat processed food, we eat stuff that's got a bunch of poison in it, and we get sick and we die. Sometimes we do something, whatever. You get my point. My point is we just, you reap, that's the other law. You reap what you sow. And so it can happen. It's just, but it doesn't mean that God doesn't love us. It doesn't mean that God doesn't care. And I think that's where, when we talk about who is God really? Like, we know him, right? We've heard all the songs, Jireh, you're a provider, and you're like Jehovah Nissi and Jehovah Sikkenu. You hear all those words and the things that he is, like he's a healer, he's a blah, 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 he's a blah, blah, blah. Yes, when he wants to be.
Yes.
When he wants to show up that way. But there's one way that he shows up all the time. And it is simply Emmanuel, God with us.
Yeah.
He is always with us. Always. He doesn't always insert himself into our situation, but he's always there.
You're right.
That's why you had, was it Hagar, that got kicked out of Abraham and Sarah's house, and she had what was the name of her son? Anyway, Abraham had a baby with Hagar, and my brain is not working for some reason this morning.
It's on Disney time.
It's on Disney time. But they're out there in the desert, completely abandoned, and she writes this thing that says, "You are Adonai El Roy. You are the God who sees me." It's the first time that the name of God is ever mentioned. A name of God is ever mentioned in the Bible, and it's Hagar who writes, "You are the God who sees me." Heaven actually wrote that on her mirror. It's still there today on the mirror in the bathroom. It says, "Adonai El Roy, you see me." And so what I know about that is that God is a God who sees us and who is with us in all of the crap.
Yes.
Yeah.
And, like, in all of it.
And that's comforting.
It is. That's the comfort that I get.
Yeah.
Because that's kind of we're talking about kind of where we are in our faith right now.
Yeah.
I'm having to rethink who God is in my life.
Yes. 100%.
Because he certainly didn't show up as the healer that I thought he was supposed to be.
Yeah.
Right? So he didn't do that. He didn't show up for you in your situation like you would have expected, right? Didn't just take everything and put it all back together and make it perfect. No. Same for you.
Yeah.
I mean, you've lost both of your parents. You've all kinds of stuff. You and Jason have gone through all kinds of stuff. It's just like, he doesn't always do that.
Yeah.
No, he doesn't.
Yeah.
He doesn't.
No.
I think about, I had a career for over 20 years that I absolutely loved. And I still sit here with no regrets today, but I'm like, really? Like, Lord, first of all, he had to make it plain. Y'all know this. He had to make it incredibly plain to me to step away from my career and to go into full-time ministry, which is something that I had ran from and avoided my entire adult life. And I did it. And this is how it ended up. What? But then when I pause and reflect and I look back in the past year, since exiting full-time ministry, I've actually done more real ministry in the past year than I ever did working at the church. I've been able to be there for people in a way, and support friends. My counselor just reminded me, and if you don't have a counselor, you need one.
Yes.
My counselor just reminded me that this season of flexibility, like, what a gift it's been.
Yeah.
And things that we've been able to do, and with the losses that we've endured in our friend circle, in our family, with the gains, having one of my best friends had a baby, all of the things, and really being able, I think we joked about this before. I said, man, I went to a funeral home, a hospital, and delivered a meal all in one day. I've never felt more like my dad.
Really? That's like ministry, though.
Literally. And so I think that sometimes I have to check myself, because I can get kind of in that mindset of like, really, Lord? Like, I left this security And I know, like I said, I don't have regrets. I was on an assignment, and when that assignment was over, it was he also made it clear. But just because I'm not working at a church right now doesn't mean that I'm not still in ministry and doing ministry. Nope. And so I think that I have to remind myself of that sometimes. And as you were talking earlier about faith, I was thinking the last sermon that my dad preached was on faith. And he said, faith is reaching out and holding on to nothing until it turns into something. Mm-hmm. And I feel like that's kind of where we're all where we're all at right now.
Well, we talked a little bit like how, life just happens. Mm-hmm. And I do believe like life just happened. Like you stepped out of your assignment with Ann Taylor to step into ministry, which was a calling that you have ran from for a long time. And so you think you're stepping into something just for it to fall apart, and now you're here. Yeah. But I do believe that, there's a purpose to everything. And so like one thing is a stepping stone to another. Yeah. And those things don't always end up the way we think it should look, but I think that if we just keep going, like that's the key, like keep going, keep pushing, even when it's hard, even when life hands you a lemon, like what it's up to us.
It is.
So what are we going to do with that?
Yeah.
Yep.
What are we going to do? And I do believe that, like, I like to think of God as kind of like our cheerleader. Like, yes, he sees me.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
He's with me and he sees me. And he's not going to go and remove that obstacle, like, that's in front of me out of the way. But he's saying, get it, girl.
You got it.
Well, and
that's what he's saying.
I think
absolutely.
I totally agree with that, Jen. And it's kind of something that you were saying, Richie. I think it's that reframing. We say, like, he's a provider. That doesn't mean that you're just going to sit there and everything's going to magically appear. He's not a genie in a bottle. And yes, I've been at Disney World, so I'm going to have a lot of... He's not from Aladdin.
Are we going to do this
but he's
show?
He's going to... Like, I think about us right now. Y'all, if you would have told me even, like, 6 months ago that I'm, like, a farmer with a family business and all of this other stuff in my backyard, I would have been like, you're crazy. But those are things like God equipped us with, like that, like the knowledge on how to do those things and like the love of it and being able to do it together. Like even what I'm doing with my coaching, like all of these things, it's not like I just stepped out and I'm like, I do believe that he's the provider, but I didn't just step out and be like, okay, God, provide. I'm here. What's in my hand? What can I do? What are the skills and the gifts and talents that he's given me? Which I knew I had for, like coaching and leadership. Didn't know I had for farming and jamming.
Where's this going to take us?
But here we are.
Here we are. You're right.
What's the name of the book? Experiencing God by Henry Blackaby. Have you ever heard of the book?
I've heard it.
It's an old one. I think it was in the 80s or 90s or whatever. But it's so good. It's so good. And one of the things that he talks about specifically is that, hold on, see if I can remember it properly because I just went, knew what was going to happen. He says, instead of asking God to bless what you're doing, look around and see what God is blessing and join that. And I think, again, that goes back to the idea that, hey, when God is doing something, he's doing it. You can join it or not, right? And it's not necessarily going to be something that he's just blessing you with. Yeah. It's the idea that he's blessing something and you can join it. And you said, what's in your hand? That's I love that story about Moses, right? When Moses is like, I'm not capable of doing whatever it is that you're telling me to do. I'm not capable of doing it. And God says through the burning bush, what do you have in your hand?
Yes.
And it's simply this staff. And that's literally a stick. He's got a stick in his hand. He's like, the stick is going to do the job for me. And he's like, throw it down, and, it turns into a snake. And so the stick it becomes something that shows a bigger God, right? Yeah. But it's just, a lot of times we sit and wait on God to do something for us. And he's literally going, you already have what you need right now in your hand. And it may not be much. It might be a stick.
Yes.
You know, it literally may not be anything that looks like it's going to make any difference whatsoever, but it's what you got. And going back to these universal laws, one is stewardship.
Yeah.
And like you steward well what you've been given, whether it's given 1 talent, 5 talents, or 10 talents, whatever you've been given, do something with it and multiply it. This goes all the way back to the fact that God's not going to do it for you.
Yeah.
Like you either do it
Yeah.
or you suffer the consequences
consequences
of not.
You
right.
do or you die. You sink or you swim. A lot of times it's like a faith fall.
Yeah.
You know, like we have trust falls.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I'm just stepping out on faith. Like,
Yes.
I don't know, because I love that principle too. Like, that's what I've always been taught, and I always take it back to that principle in the Bible. What do you have in your hands?
Yeah.
It may not look like much.
Yeah.
Like, guys, I wish the world could see where the Biggs family farm is.
Yes.
You know, and that is such a
Send me
good-
some videos. I may just throw them
Well,
in
it's
here to
such-
show you because you guys got to see.
I mean, they're in the middle of a master plan community, and it's not at all like what you would think.
Yeah.
But that is the perfect example of we're just going to start with what we have.
Yeah.
And then, I've been speaking life into this. Every time I go over, I'm like, hey, like, this place, you're going to need something bigger.
Yeah.
Like, it's just right around the corner because it's starting to just grow bigger and bigger and bigger. But you started with just a little seed. You started with just this small thing, but you were a good steward of it. And you just kept going and you just kept building. But if you were just to look at that tiny little seed and like what you guys had and really thought about, you know, the what ifs, you would have never gotten to where you are today.
Yeah.
You just had to trust, you know.
Well, and you guys left a toxic situation in a ministry.
Yeah.
You left and you didn't know where you were going.
No.
Literally.
You had
and
nothing.
it was our entire livelihood because we
Right.
both worked there.
Yeah.
And so, but at the end of the day, there's not a price on my integrity.
Right.
Yeah, it's
Exactly.
Hopefully you
Yeah.
don't have to edit that
It's
out.
good.
No, I'm not editing that out at all.
I mean,
that-
it's just, it is what it is. And the Lord made it clear that it was time, you know, to go. And it was hard. I mean, 7 years of our life. And
I feel you.
it was difficult. But I think looking back, I can see, you know, anytime I've had struggles with my faith, 2018, I had a huge struggle with my faith. You in heaven helped me. It was, my dad was diagnosed with cancer. We were going through all kinds of things. And it was funny. I remember you were like, hey, have you like read your Bible or what? Because you're like, everybody has a struggle of faith in the Bible. Because I'm just like, oh God. And that was actually the first time I was considering going into ministry. We had been talking about it. And, you know, my dad's death really sent me in a different direction. But through all of this, we've seen God's faithfulness to our family. And so I think that is, it's okay. And you told me this a long time ago. It's okay to question.
Yeah.
It's okay to say, like, really? Like, why is all of this happening?
Yeah, that's
God can handle it. He can take that.
Yes, he can.
And you're thinking it anyway, and he already knows. So you
Exactly.
might as well say it.
exactly.
But I think, you know, he's just proven himself faithful over and over and over again. And when you build that relationship in equity, it carries you through.
Yeah.
When you hit a year like last year,
Yeah.
like leaving our jobs, losing our friends, losing my mom. When you hit those tough spots, you have that to go back to and lean on.
Well, I think as, you know, you just said something, you know, just like God is so faithful. And I think that when you're going through hard times and you are uncertain about the future and everything looks scary, it's really good just to pause and to take a look back. And I love taking a look back in my scariest moments and my moments where I'm so uncertain about the future. I take a look back and I see, well, I'm not where I was
Yep.
a year ago.
Right.
I'm much stronger. I'm much better. I'm finding my voice. I made it through another day.
Exactly.
My kids are okay.
Exactly.
Like those are the times when I look back and say, okay, I'm not where I want to be. I haven't arrived. And by the way, like we're never going to arrive until we're 6 feet under and on the other side. Like, so I'm not where I want to be. I still don't know exactly where I'm going, but I'm making progress.
Yep.
And I can see God's hand in that.
Absolutely.
And so it's so important to take those looks back.
You have to. You have to recognize it, right? Because what's the Bible says, Jesus said, I have come that you might have life and have it more abundantly. Now, we have twisted that scripture so badly for so long because we literally think that abundance is when you think of abundance, what do you think of? Right? You think of like all the good stuff, lots of good stuff, and more, right?
Yeah.
No, that's not the case at all. I think when you recognize these little things, it's the little things. My kids are good right now, right? This moment, like in this moment, the present moment, there are good things that you can pick out, even in horrible situations, right? Even in horrible situations. I think we talked about this once before, but when Heaven was so sick, I was in the kitchen one night and I just, like, I knew this wasn't looking good, you know. And she's in the bedroom and she's sleeping, and I just started saying, "This is my reality. This is what I've been gifted, and I'm grateful." And I kept saying that over and over and over again because I was like dark depression coming over me, you know. And I stopped and I realized, okay, in this moment, this is my reality. This is where I'm at, right? Yeah. This is a gift. I got to find out what that gift looks like. I don't quite understand what's gifty about it, but this is a gift. There's something about this that I can find that's a gift, and I'm grateful for it. Yeah. And I kept saying it over and over and over and over again, and then that fog would lift a little bit, and I did that all the way through all this stuff, and it's just a reminder that, look, if we look hard enough, we will find the abundance in the life that we have. Yeah, that's true. And we're looking for financial abundance, and we're looking for, all these status abundance and all that stuff. That's not abundance to God. No, it's not. That's not abundance to Him at all. The idea of success is so different in the eyes of God than it is in ours. And so when we get to a place where we can redefine success properly, I think, have we talked about Moses and his journey? So I'll say it again in case we haven't talked about it. But the idea that Moses, from the very beginning, from that burning bush moment, like his whole life was pointed toward the promised land. Like, I've got to get there. That's my goal. That's success for me, right? And then he gets to the end of his life. He goes up the mountain, and by the way, he was strong enough to get up the mountain, so he wasn't going to die. He wasn't planning on dying. He was strong enough. He gets up the mountain, and the Lord says, "You're not going to the promised land. You're not going over there." He didn't argue about it. Yeah. Why didn't he argue about it? Because Moses was an arguer. He had a mouth on him, right? Yeah. But he didn't argue. And I think it's because he realized at another mountain earlier on that success doesn't necessarily look like what I think it's supposed to look like. And when he gets to the end, he's standing there and he realizes the promised land isn't that piece of land over there. The promised land is the presence of God. And I've been in it all along. This whole journey is my promise.
It's about the journey.
It is the journey. Yes, it's not this destination that we think we've got and that this is success for us. No, like ministry success, I used to think ministry success was a big platform. Yeah. Boy, I know that's not true now.
Oh my gosh.
Right? Yeah. Like, now I know that has nothing to do with success. What is and ministry success may not even look like ministry that we know it to be, like full-time ministry.
Well, for me, like, I know exactly, like, I'm like, God's doing a switch with me right now too, because I'm in my 40s, and for me the same thing. It was like success to me looked like a successful ministry, and now that's gone, and so I'm trying to redefine that success, and I'm like, okay, well, what does that look like? So a year ago, I'm like, that looks like maybe speaking on some kind of level. That means me speaking or having a foundation to help others, which are really, really good things. But now that I watch my children grow, and I have one graduating college, another who is, in the middle of her college years, and I'm watching what God is doing in their lives, I'm like, no, that's success. like getting behind my
Yeah.
children.
Right.
Like, like I've done my part, and my part now is it's not about me. Like I want to pour into them, pour into their lives and watch them go. It's in the journey, Richie.
Yes.
It's in the journey of just doing life.
Yes.
Period.
It is. And you said it just now, and that is a key that so many of us have to remember. And we say it all the time, but we don't really, really mean it. It's not about me.
It's not about me.
It is never about me. The things that God chooses to do when he does give us something, it's not for you.
No.
It's for the greater good, right?
Exactly.
It's never about us. Look at David. David didn't build the tabernacle. He didn't build the temple. But he prepared the way for his son to do it.
Prepared the way.
And his son was able to build the tabernacle. That was success for him.
I think that's it. Like we're just supposed to prepare the way
Yep.
for others, period, for the generations to come.
Well, and I think that like in our culture, we have this destination mentality where we're so focused on where we're going and how fast we can get there that we forget about the journey.
Yes.
Last year, we took a cross-country road trip and went to Yosemite, and on the way back, we went through Arizona and we drove through this last little part of Route 66, which used to be like such a huge deal. And it was because the journey was just as exciting as the destination. When families would plan their trips, they would go down this road because there was attractions, there was restaurants, they knew they could find all of this stuff. And so that was the excitement, not just but now it's dried up.
Yeah.
Because no one cares about that anymore. It's just about we want to get to our destination as fast as we can. And we're not really, we're so focused on tomorrow. I see this a lot in my coaching in the theme of futuristic. We're so focused on tomorrow that we're not ready for today. And we're not enjoying today or really being in the moment.
That's me.
I was just going to say, I want more of that. And I don't know if it has to do, I think it has to do with several different things. I think that the older you get, the more you start to realize what's important. And I think that when you go through hard times, it really, you take a step back and you look at what's really important and you start to redefine things. And before we started the podcast, I was in my home telling Richie how I'm ready to just start making my life more simple. Just, that means, what does that look like? That means smaller home, less things. I don't want to be worried about stuff. I want my life to be more about the experience and the journey and just doing life with my children. Stuff is weighty.
Yeah.
It's just very, very weighty, and I'm just ready to rid the stuff. But I think that comes with the more life experience, the more you go through, the more pain. Like it makes you just really take a hard look at where you're going.
Yeah.
And
It does.
makes you realize that those things don't matter.
Yeah.
They don't matter.
I was looking at, and this is not the book that you necessarily want to read when you pick up the Bible, like Ecclesiastes. Like when you start with Ecclesiastes, literally the title at the very top of the first chapter is "Everything is Meaningless."
Wow.
Literally, the words of the teacher, son of David, king in Jerusalem, meaningless, meaningless, says the teacher, utterly meaningless. Everything is meaningless. What do people gain from all their labors at which they toil under the sun? Generations come and generations go, but the earth remains forever. The sun rises, the sun sets, and hurries back to where it rises. And he just keeps going. He's like, it's all wearisome and meaningless, which sounds so like, bleh. But at the same time, when you start to learn to detach yourself from the things that you thought meant so much,
Yes.
right? Like sometimes you do it yourself. Sometimes it's torn from you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But when you are detached from the things that you thought meant so much, then you start to realize that there's not a ton of things that really matter.
Yeah.
No.
There's just not.
Oh my gosh.
Right? And I don't remember who told me this the other day. I was saying, man, I've dropped a whole lot of balls lately. I'm trying to juggle too many things, trying to be a parent, trying to start a business, trying to do the ministry, trying to do all these things. None of that. I can't be a mom. I'm trying to be, but I can't be a mom. I'm going to be a dad, but I'm not a mom. And somebody said, well, you have two different kinds of juggling balls that you're using. There's plastic ones and there's glass ones. You're going to drop the plastic ones. It's okay. Just don't drop the glass ones.
Make sure you don't drop the glass ones.
Find the things that are meaningful, right? Yeah. All of this other stuff. And the more that we detach from the things that we think matter, the closer we get to God.
Yeah.
Because then we have detached from the worldly things and the earthly things, and we're more in touch with our Creator, which is really what He wants in the first place.
Yeah.
Hey guys, we're going to cut this episode here because this conversation is going long and longer, and it's turning into something else, and it's been great. And so we're going to cut the conversation here, and we're going to do a second episode to finish this conversation out, and then we'll see what happens. But I just want to let you know, so you know what's going on, that we stopped it right in the middle of a conversation. We're stopping it here because we've got so much more to talk about. So we'll put that on the next episode. Thanks so much. Hey guys, I want to take just a moment and tell you about a company that is doing something really, really unique in the space of marketing for churches. Zion Multimedia, owned by my friend Kyle Ewald, is making a massive shift to church marketing. They're really kind of reinventing the idea of marketing for churches. And I love it because it's a ministry first approach. I'm not a fan of icky marketing. I'm not a fan of the typical marketing that just says, hey, come join what we're doing, come see us for the Easter service or whatever. I'm not a big fan of just that kind of icky marketing. It's hard for me even to market a lot of my stuff because I just don't like that kind of marketing. And so what's so cool about this ministry first approach is it connects you deeply with the people that you are reaching out to almost immediately in the process. If you followed me at all in social media, which by the way is at the Richie Allen, if you don't follow me, so go there. But if you see, there's the icky marketing part. But if you've followed me at all, you know that I'm a big believer in deep discipleship. And I do believe that the modern day church, for the most part, has kind of missed the mark in that area in favor of just pushing for that weekend service. And what you have to have for deep discipleship, first, you have to have deep connection. And what's so cool about what Zion is doing is that they are connecting you on a deep, deep level early in the process, one-to-one with the people that you're reaching out to. And what this will do is when they do decide to come to church, they're already connected. It's all like they already feel like family before they ever walk in the door. They already feel like they know somebody before they ever walk in the door. And that is going to get them, not only if they come, they're going to stay. And Zion has done such a great job that they have proven this is working. And there's a much greater result when you do it this way, this ministry first approach. I think if you're a pastor or a church leader of any kind in communications or connections or anything like that, you need to reach out to them. And the best way to reach out to Kyle and his team is go to ziondoesitbetter.com/Richie. ziondoesitbetter.com/Richie. And they can get you set up. What's also cool right now is that they do a whole lot of other stuff. They do video production, they do websites, they do all kinds of stuff that you guys would find useful. Right now, they're actually doing like 50% off on a website, which is just great. But don't sleep on this. This is something that you really want to get involved in, and it's a massive blessing for just a little bit of investment. So go check it out, ziondoesitbetter.com/Richie. Thanks for watching Make Peace with War. If you liked this episode, I'd really appreciate it if you'd like it, share it, and hit the subscribe button. You can check out our website at makepeacewithwar.com, where you'll find out more about MPW, outtakes and resources from the show, show notes, links to my YouTube and IG channels, and more. Join us for upcoming episodes as we continue to learn how to become peaceful warriors. God bless.